Hi Parag.
Sabir, can you hear me?
Yes, Parag, I can hear you quite well.
Okay, that's good.
How are you doing, Parag?
Yeah, I'm doing good, not bad.
All right, good. Good to hear that. So, folks, Parag is going to share his learning and experience on export DMF jobs using Power Automate in Dynamics 365 HR slash FNO, that's Finance and Operations. And with that, I'll not waste much time. So, Parag, I'll hand over the mic to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Shabir. Let me share my presentation. Oh, where it's gone. There is something here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, Parag.
Okay, so in today's session, I'm going to explain how to export DMF jobs using Power Automate in Dynamics HR or F&O. So it's like both are the same technology, but I'll use Dynamics HR for the demonstration purpose. Next is who am I? So my name is Parag Chapre. Basically, I'm from India. Currently, I'm working with Forvision as a technical solution architect. I have around 14 years of experience in Microsoft technology. I work on Dynamics 365, F&O, HR, Power Platform, BI, and integration. I am a Microsoft Dynamics 365 HR community staff. I'm also 365 community contributor. And currently, I'm working with Microsoft product team for the development of leave and absence module in HR. Also, we are working on timesheet. And I'm living in Netherlands with my family from last 5 years. If you have any questions related to HR, you can always email me on my Gmail ID. You can also follow me on the LinkedIn. And I'm also writing the blogs on my website. I'm also writing the blogs on the Dynamics community. Also writing the blogs for my company. So let me move to the next topic. So today's our agenda is first I will talk about the introduction, why we are using this technology. Second is prerequisite, and then we will create a Power Automate solution, and then we will test the Power Automate solution. So first is why to use REST API. So there are different purpose why to use REST API. So for example, if I consider the use case from one of my customer, I'm working one of the customer called iSIM. They have requirement. Okay, I want to export the data when the position is modified in their system. So they want to trigger the information from Dynamics HR, and they want to send this information back to their system. This is one of the use case. And second use case, most of the time customer they want to extract the data from HR, and they want to send to a different third party system, or you can say different storage device. One of the example is Azure Blob Storage, second is the FTP, or some customer they want to send data to on-premises SQL server. So these are the use case and why to use REST API. By using REST API, you can do the data transformation and data export based on the recurrence. So you can use different kind of recurrence, like you can use per minute, you can use per hour, or you can use per day. So there are different situations based on the customer requirement. And you can also trigger the data export and the transformation. Like for example, if I want to send the data when the record is created or when the record is modified, that's possible. But we also have like some other options, like you can export the data by using DMF, like you can just do manually when customer don't want to do automatically. Second option is OData. With the help of OData, you can also export the data. And third option is the basic example like Excel workbook designer. Especially users those doesn't have knowledge on the OData or data management framework, they can use the Excel workbook designer. They can take the entity whatever they want, and they can just extract the information. Next slide. Okay, so there is a topic choosing an API for the integrations and authorization. In the current system of HR, it supports two different API. First API is Data Management Frameworks Package API, and second is Recurring Integration API. In this session, we are going to use Data Management Framework API. The main purpose is you can schedule the integration outside the F&O or outside the HR, and you can only extract the data packages, not the other information. And you can also do the transformation. For example, you have some enums or you have some drop downs that you can do transformation with this API, and we are going to use REST API for this integration. And then we have the authorization DMF package. It supports OAuth 2.0 authentication. That means we have to register the API, and based on the register we should get some token. So that's the reason we are going to use OAuth 2.0 authentication. Next is what are the prerequisites. So here we have a different systems. So for the if we are using the HR, then we need a system admin access in the HR application. Second requirement is we need access to the Azure portal so that we can create a application inside the Azure and we can register that application. Third, we need access to the Power Platform to create a Power Automate solution. And the last, we need access to the different system. For example, if you want to send data to the Azure Storage, FTP or OneDrive, then you should have access to those systems. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll move to the next slide. In these sessions, I'm going to use this below technology. I'm going to use Dynamics 365 human resource for the master data, and we are going to export the information of position V2 entity. Technology use is Power Automate. You can use multiple technology, like for example, you can use Logic Apps, you can use Data Factory, you can use maybe some other middleware application, and we are going to use DMF package REST API so that it will trigger the position information from the Dynamics HR. And OneDrive, when the information is exported from Dynamics HR, it will extract the information on the OneDrive. Okay, so how to register an application in Azure for Dynamics HR? I'll just take you to the directly in the system. Okay, so if I log into the portal.azure, first step is we have to go to the Azure Active Directory, and here we have the app registration. On the app registration, we have to create a new registration. In this case, I already have the HR registered already. I'll just show you what are the information we required. When you create an app registration, you have to provide some information here. In this case, first is the API permission. In this case, I'm using the Dynamics HR. The earlier name is Dynamics 365 for the talent. So we have to provide an access to this API. Also, we have to provide access to the Dynamics ERP and also Microsoft Graph. So this is the first requirement. Once this is done, we have to go to the certificates and the secret. Here we have to create a new client secret ID. And once this is done, we have to note down few fields here. So in this case, we have to note down the client ID, we have to note down the tenant ID, and we have to note down the client secret. We are going to use this in the Power Automate. Moving to the slide. So we are done with these steps. So next step is we have to create a project in HR. So if you see this screenshot, I already created a project in data management framework export. This is a position v2 entity. I use the position v2 entity here, and I just use the format as the Excel. And when you export the entity, you have a two option, full push and the incremental. So if you use the incremental push, so first time it will do the full push data, and after that from the next time it will do the incremental push. So it means is when the record is modified or deleted, it will only show that data in your Excel. The overview of integration is in this integration we will do the recurrence basis. So we can export the data based on the maybe hourly basis or the daily basis. And then here we are going to use some variables like data project name and the legal entity. So in this case, the data project name is the position v2, and I'm going to use the contours of database. So I'm going to use USN map entity. Then we have to create some kind of more steps. I will tell you in the next steps. Before we begin for the Power Automate solution, first thing is you have to create an environment variable. So why we have to create the environment variable? If you are if you are just deploying your solution from one environment to another environment, you don't need to change all the variables in your flow. If you just change this variable, then automatically it will change everywhere. And when we register the application for HR, then we have the client ID, the secret ID, and the tenant. So we have to use this field in the Power Automate solution. And the namespace and the URL, we can get this from the Dynamics HR application. So if I go to the Dynamics HR, so this is my namespace. This is my URL, and my namespace will be from this one to this namespace ID. So we have to use this in the Dynamics HR. And once we register the application, we have to add that client ID into Azure Active Directory application. So if I just type the Azure Active Directory application, so you can see this client ID is registered here from the Dynamics HR application, which is available in the Azure portal. Okay, let me begin. Okay, first I will explain in the presentations how we can create a Power Automate solution, and then I will show you on this Power Platform. So first step is the recurrence, which we already covered in the previous session. And then the step two is we have to create variables here so that we can use for the data export. Third step is GUID. So while we are creating a GUID here, so whenever this flow runs, it will always create a unique GUID for the data definition. So that's the reason we are using this GUID. Then the step four is to authenticate the Dynamics HR application. We have to first request for the token, and then we have to use that token for the integration. So here we are using the HTTP post method, and we have to provide this URL, and we have to provide the tenant ID, and then we are here giving the token ID, and then we have to provide the header as a content type, and then we have to provide the value as application, and this form uncoded. And then in the body sections, we have to provide the client ID, we have to provide the client secret, we have to provide the scope, like for which application, whether it's a Dynamics HR or it's a FNO URL, and then we have to provide the grant type as a client credential. Once we authenticate to HR, then we will get the token from the HR application. Once that step is successful, then we have to start exporting the data, and for that we are going to use HTTP post request, and here we have to provide the URL, we have to provide the namespace ID, and this is the default. So here we have to provide the data definition package, and in the body section we have to provide the definition group ID, like the data project name. In this case it is a position v2, and then we have to provide the package name as a unique value. So in this case this is taking as output, which is a GUID. It will always generate a new GUID, and this will be a .zip file, and we have to provide the execution ID as a GUID. And next is the legal entity, so on which legal entity we are going to run this integration. So in this case this is a USML. Once we done with this export process, then we have to get the package and we have to download the file. So for that we have to again request for the HTTP post request. We have to give it the export package URL, and we have to just pass the execution ID from the previous step. And once this step is done, then we have to just use the HTTP GET request, and we have to just provide the value from the get package URL. So here we will receive the download file from the package. And then once this step is done, then we can just check some execution status, whether it is already executed or it's not yet run. Then we have to provide some kind of apply to each loop as a conditional loop, and if it is successful, then we have to create a file on the OneDrive. So in this case, on the OneDrive I have created a folder called DMF-zip. So there I am exporting the information, and my file name will be the output as a guid.zip, and the file content will be the from the previous step. And then we will extract this information to DMF zip extract. Then it will create one more file, and then here you can provide whether you want to overwrite the file or you want to create a new file every time. This is about the overview of the integration. Now we will see this on the application. Okay, so we are done with this register Dynamics HR in the portal, and then we are also done with this client ID. We have to add this client ID into Azure Active Directory application, and here we have to provide the user ID. If this user ID does not have access to the system admin, then our flow will fail. Make sure this user ID should have access to Dynamics HR, also access to the Power Platform solution. Then let's go to the data management. In the data management, we have to create a export project. So in this case, I already have the export project. So this is my project name, and this is my position v2 entity. I am exporting the data into the Excel format. And here I am doing the full push. So I want to export all the data from the system. I don't want to do the incremental push. Next is we have to go to the Power Platform. First is make sure you have the correct environment selected here. So in this case, I have the sandbox environment, and then I have the solution created here. I have some environment variable. If you want to create the environment variable, first you can just click on the new. You can click on more, and then here you can create a environment variable. And all the environment variable you can assign the values here. Like I assign the client ID as this value, and then I assign the URL. So this is the URL from the Dynamics HR, and this is the namespace from the Dynamics HR. The next step is to create a Power Automate solution. So if I go to the Cloud Flow, if I click on the edit, in this case I'm using the recurrence. You can also use different criteria. You can use HTTP post request, or you can use the trigger maybe manual flow. And here I'm just providing the data project name as a position v2 in this case, and then I'm using the legal entity called USMF. And then if you see this is a GUID function, and if you want to see what are the steps we are using, so this is the compose function here, and then here in the compose function you have to just provide the GUID. It will create a unique GUID every time. And then here I'm using the post function for the get token. So you have to request this parameter in the URI. You can do same thing also in from the Postman for the testing purpose. That's also possible. This is my client ID. This is my client secret. Here I'm passing the scope as a URL of HR. And then I'm using the client type as a client credential. Once this is done, then you will get the token bearer from the HR application, and then here we will start exporting the data from the HR. We have to provide the correct package name here, also the definition group and the legal entity, and then here we can provide some condition. So when you want to trigger this flow, so here you can see that I'm using not condition. If the execution status is not run and not executing, then it will run. And again here I'm just checking the status of this flow. I'm just giving some delay for 10 seconds. Here I'm checking another condition. If the export is succeeded, then it will take the package URL from the HR system, and then it will download the file. So once the file is downloaded, we are sending this file back to the OneDrive, and then this file will export to the OneDrive. I made this configuration on the OneDrive. I can show you here. So if you see, this is my files. I created a folder called DMF under DMF-zip. So this will export the data here, and the extraction of the data will be done in this folder extract. Now we will try to run this flow. You can do this manually. If I click on manually save and test, when we run the Power Automate solution, it will always save the flow first, and then it will run the solution. Now click on the run flow. So you can see all the steps here. You can see the position bit to the value. You can see that it created a GUID here, and then you can see that it's created a token here, the access token, and you can see the token value here. And now it's exporting the data. You can see the data export is already done here, and then you can see the conditions here, the check status. This is the, it's showing the value not run. It's some, there is some delay for 10 seconds. If it is not run, then it will trigger this flow. Now we are getting the data package URL from here. So this is a data package URL, and this will download the file here, and then it's created a file on the OneDrive. So if I go to my OneDrive, and if I go back here, and if I just say refresh, you see here this is created a new export file here about 1 minute ago. And this file is a zip file. If you open this file, you can see manifest, you can see the package header, and you can see the position data. And if I go back to extract info folder, it's created the extraction of file here. And if I open position v2, you can see it's showing all the data from the Dynamics HR. So how, this is how we can use the REST API in Power Automate to extract the information from Dynamics HR or finance and operation. Moving back to my presentation, we almost covered these points. This is how it shows the data in the Power Automate solution and also OneDrive. Okay, any questions so far?
Thank you, Parag.
Thank you, Shabbir.
So maybe a big shout out to all our attendees. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and we will unmute you. Yes, Abhishek.
I think Abhishek is on mute.
Abhishek, you can unmute yourself now. Hello, Abhishek. Okay, it seems there is some technical challenge from Abhishek's side.
Okay.
He's, he's joined back, so we'll let him ask his question. Yeah. Yes, Abhishek, I have enabled your mic. You can unmute.
Sorry, now I am audible.
Yeah.
Yes, Abhishek, you are.
Yeah, hi everyone. So just wanted to know, do we have any idea about data task automation framework which we have in our Dynamics 365? Just we have shown import export. Any insight about? Please give
Yeah,
some.
you can also use that import and export, but that's just a manual framework, or you can also do batch job. But that's it only. There are some limitations. For example, if your customer have some different requirement, So in that case, you cannot use the DMF jobs.
Okay, so for that we have to install any kind of external framework, or that is there into Dynamics 365 FNO only.
No, I think you have to just use the Power Automate or you have to use Logic Apps. Only thing is you have to register that application inside the application. So in this case, Logic Apps. So first you have to register the application in the Azure portal, and then you have to add this client ID in the Dynamics F&O application, and then you can use the application in Power Automate or Logic Apps.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you once again, Parag.
Okay, thank you.